it was a joke to me. I'd be like, ha, ha, ha. When I go to Starbucks, people used to be like, oh, my God, you look just like Jon Bernthal, blah, 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 blah. Be like, yeah, can I get a free macchiato?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, anyways.
Did you ever get a free macchiato?
No, they were very unimpressed when I was like, yeah, I'm a double, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no discount. Anyways. I got a discount one time.
You want to start from the beginning with cigars? Is there like a certain time you like to bust it out?
I mean, I'd love to start at the beginning. I just, I haven't had my morning cigar yet, John. So
every day with those things?
Yeah, I don't inhale them though, man. I still work out every day. I just like to smoke cigars.
Are you not you don't box at Steve's anymore?
It's too far. I used to live in Larchmont. I used to drive right down
to Steve's.
Petramolli's. It was 10 minutes from my house.
What about I just talked to him on the phone, man. He sends love, bro.
He's awesome.
He's one of a kind, huh?
Yeah, he is. He's the best.
And do you know that like Steve at that gym, like no bull, 85% of the people that box at that gym he kicks out. Like if he had more tolerant of people that were full of shit,
I didn't know that.
He would make all the money in the world. But like he won't let people in that gym because like if you lie once, if you don't be who you say you are once, you can't box there anymore.
I get that about him though.
And he was like I just got off the phone with him. Sammy is one of a kind. He's like, I love that guy. He's one of a. You know how rare that is for Steve to say that? It's like literally, I can't think of it.
Steve really said that?
Said it to me on the day. He goes, yeah. Tell him. He told me, what story did he ask me to? Oh, he said that you were holding hand pads for him.
Yeah.
You had told your lady about that he has old man strength, and it reminded you of some story. What was that? He says there's some story where you like fought an old guy in the pen or something.
Tell you that story?
Yeah, tell me that story.
That was the toughest fight I ever been in my life.
Tell me.
Okay. So the year was 2006.
Yeah.
I was in Dixon Correctional Center in Dixon, Illinois.
Okay.
And
2000. How old are you? 2006.
23.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 39 now. So the only reason, this is a trip. I haven't thought about this story in a long time. He's probably the last person I told that story to.
Yeah.
Worm, big worm. So check this out. So the only reason Dixon was the sweetest joint in the state. When I say sweet, what I mean is you had the most movement. You could move around. You could do whatever you wanted to do. And the only reason I got to Dixon, the only reason, is because I had a lawsuit against IDOC because they beat my brains out in 2005 in Stateville behind the wall, which is max. They beat the shit out of me. Right?
The COs.
The COs and lieutenants.
Why
because I punched a white shirt in the face over
the Jewish Star.
It was actually a chai.
Got it. Got it. Oh, I want to hear that story too. But tell me.
In any event, though, I'm not trying to blow smoke in your face. This is a wonderful cigar, though. I mean, this is a really, truly wonderful cigar.
Like this? How you do
so
this?
You got to toast it. So you want to toast it. You want to hold the flame just far, but a little bit further away. So just like the tip of the flame, and really toast it for like a good minute, and then just get a couple.
For a minute? You didn't do it a minute.
I did do it a minute. I did about 40 seconds.
Now, see how I just say you didn't do it a minute?
Yeah.
Did you feel like I was being aggressive?
No.
No, right? It's just the way we talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
He really is like a. All right, anyway, sorry. Tell the story. Sorry.
Yeah, you just want to toast a cigar like this. You really want to toast it. I'm only busting this out for a special occasion because it's you. Honest to God, I would smoke a regular.
Thank you, bro.
Regular like $10 cigar, but you got I busted out the big guns for you.
Thank you, bro.
But isn't that like somebody? You know what's crazy though?
Tell me.
Isn't it like when you're already a superstar, you get all the best? Do you know what I mean? Isn't that true though? Right?
I mean, it's. I have noticed like the people who need it the least
I'm
get the
bringing
money.
you.
Yeah.
I could have brought you a $15 cigar, but instead I'm like, nah, it's Bernthal. I'm gonna bring a $75 6.6.
But you know what's up about it is you could have brought me the.
You would have been happy with it.
$4.
Sure.
I would have been happy with, and I wouldn't have known the difference. I mean,
Sure.
but I'll enjoy this, and
But
it
I
says a
know
lot
the
about you.
difference.
You know the difference,
I gotta bring
which
you
says
the
a
good
lot
shit.
about you.
Thank you
That says a
very
lot
much. I
about you.
appreciate that.
All right, so Dixon Correctional. What's the dormitories like in Dixon?
So they're not dorms, they're cells. But here's the thing. So I was truly a very bad behaved inmate the entire time I was in prison. And the only reason I got to Dixon, the only people that got to Dixon were guys that had been locked up 20 years and had already like worked their way through the system and good behavior got down there.
Yeah.
Or like cops that got locked up or something like that. And it was it was people that had been locked up a long time. It was not a place because it was a medium security prison, and I was somebody that had spent 5.5 years out of 8.5 years in solitary confinement, disciplinary segregation. So I was never going to end up in Dixon. The only reason I got down there is because after I got into it with the white shirt with the lieutenant, and they beat the out of me, they knocked my tooth out. They gave me a pumpkin head deluxe. They fucked me up real bad. I never gave up hope of coming out from under. They gave me a year solitary confinement, a year good time loss, which means you have to do a extra year added onto your sentence. And then on top of that, they were going to try to give me a case. So to combat that, I started writing lawyers in the law library. Every day I would write a different lawyer, right? And so I amassed like 50 letters that I sent out, and I got represented from a law firm, a pretty prestigious law firm.
What was the basis of your case? Like what were you
Excessive force.
Excessive force.
Look, I punched this guy. I did. And then after they hit me with the pepper spray right in my face, and I got one punch off, and then they beat the shit out of me, and then they got me. We're in a little cell in Stateville on 8 Gallery. You know what I mean? It's 4 stories up, and they beat the shit out of me, got me on the ground, handcuffed me, and then stomped me out, stomped me in the nuts, stomped me in the feet.
How many guys?
5. It was 2 white shirts and 3 COs.
Tell everybody what a white shirt is.
A white shirt is a lieutenant. A white shirt is a lieutenant. He wears a white shirt.
And that was over the high.
That was over the necklace.
Okay, all right. You got to tell us that story too.
I'll tell you that story too. But to get to the Dixon fight, I just say that because I got down to Dixon because of the lawsuit. They let me down in this prison. I never would have been there. And as soon as I got down there, I got into a fight, which I'm not even going to get into that. I just got into another fight over some gangbanging. But regardless, time goes by, and when you're in prison, on the back of the IDOC cards it says staff assaulter. It says your religion, and it says if you ever assaulted a staff, it will say staff assaulter, right?
And like back then it was like staff assaulter.
But back then it was like a badge of honor. But the only thing is like if COs see that, they're gonna fuck with you. They're gonna fuck with you big time, right? Which is another story. What? So the thing happened is,
this is good.
Isn't it a good cigar?
Yeah.
So essentially, a new warden came down, and he started instituting some up policies, like more lockdown and things like that, and guys were all pissed off, and I was pissed off, right? So what kicked the whole thing off is we were sitting at the chow hall, and there were bigger tables at the chow hall, right? There was like, in Dixon, there was a lot of guys at the table, and I'm sitting there, and I was talking to myself. I was like, a CO said something, like I think he might have been rushing us to hurry up our food or whatever, and he's like, he's telling us to go, and I just sat down and ate. I'm like, man, and this dude next to me, who was an old guy named Worm. His real name, I remember his real name, Charles Wormley. He was locked up for murdering a cop when he was a kid in the 70s, and he had been locked up since the 70s, right? I would never remember details like that, but on this guy I remember. And he was a cool dude, but regardless. So he hears me mumbling like these, and he like tries to front me off. He's like, why don't you do something about it then, man? He's like, if you're so mad about it, why don't you get up and throw a tray in his face then, And he started like instigating in front of people. And at that time in my life, I did not like making any scenes in front of anybody, right? And by the way, the politics in Chicago and Illinois are very different than the politics out here in the prison system.
Can you explain?
There's no race in Chicago. Because all the gangs you got black dudes in Latino gangs, you got white dudes in Latino gangs, you got Latino dudes in black gangs, you got some white guys in black gangs. It's very different.
Very different. And
that's how it is in the joint, right? Whereas out here, obviously,
the politics are all
cars are all one race and everything like that. But so nonetheless, we're sitting at the same table, and the guy starts. I've never had an interaction with this dude in my life, right? So the dude's like, why don't you get up and do something about it? So I'm looking, and I don't say nothing. Because at that time in my life, it was dry snitching. In my mind, if I say anything and make a scene, that's dry snitching because you're alerting the COs that there could be some type of altercation. So I wasn't gonna do that. So I didn't say shit to him. And then everybody got off at the table. He stayed sitting. I stayed sitting. And when everybody got up, I took my idea. I showed the staff. So I said, motherfucker, I've been doing this shit. I said, first of all, I didn't know anything about this guy. I didn't know that this dude, was locked up for 40 years and and he was getting ready to go see the parole board. I didn't know any of this shit. But I'm just like, I said, why don't you go do something? I said, you know what, you go hit the CO right now. I'll follow suit to you. How about that? How about that? And he started talking. I said, I told my cell I said, you know what, here's my cell. Come holler at me afterwards. Come. I'm not gonna make a scene in front of the police. Motherfucker, come see me after, when we get back. So, we get back. I go in my cell. I told my next door neighbor. I said, hey, listen, man, I got into his at the chow hall. If you see a dude coming down the gallery, let me know. And he's like, all right. Or it's a wing. It's a wing in Dixon because they're wings on the unit. Galleries are in the cell houses in Stateville and the Max. So nonetheless, I'm in there. I'm putting my shoes on. I'm getting ready, and my next door neighbor, whose name was Big D, he come. He's like, hey bro, he goes, dude's coming, and dude's coming. He's got gloves on. He's mugged.
I mean, he's got gloves on.
Like you got.
He wrapped his hands.
Like guys wear like gardening gloves they sell on commissary, so that they don't get marks on their fists. Because if you get into a fight and somebody snitches, then internal affairs will look at your fist to try to see if you have marks on your fist, and then they'll take you to jail.
But your hands still get marked up, right? With them,
not like
just
that.
Not
the
same.
They're looking for literally
like bone on bone.
Yeah, they're looking for red marks along the knuckles, and all that. So, oh my bad. Whatchamacallit. So, Big D says, hey, dude coming down right now, like he's all mugged up and got gloves on, and I'm like, all right, cool. So now it was cool. The fucking the wings were about as wide as this wooden area right here, right? Cell doors on each side. And so all the guys made a wall. So we had like a legit area to fight, right? And I don't remember who threw the first punch, but all I remember is when dude hit me. I'll never forget this shit because when dude hit me, my mother eyes went like this in my brain.
Wow.
Right?
Came with the
I
kitchen
remember
sink.
he hit me with like a 2-piece crispy, and my eyes were just like, and we got into it, and we went at it, for like a good, I don't know, maybe it felt like 10 minutes. It was probably a minute, right? We got into it, and like I had like a little busted lip. He had a little busted lip. It was what it was, and because I remember the whole week, I was walking like this. With my lips sucked in so nobody would see it. So if I was ever walking to the chow hall or anywhere I was going, I had my lips sucked in so that the COs wouldn't see that I had a mark from fighting, right? Injury. And we never got caught for that fight, right? We got away with it. And that was the one guy, literally in all the fights I got into, which was quite a few, that I talked to afterwards. We were cool. It was like a mutual respect thing.
Yeah.
Like he was just cool. And then I found out this dude had been locked up since he was like 15. He got charged as an adult for a murder when he was like 15. This dude was like a C number, and C numbers still see the parole board. In Illinois, they cut your at the time they cut your time in half, and you don't see a parole board no more. You just, if you don't get in trouble, you get out at a certain date. But the guys that were locked up before 1978, I think, were still C numbers. And those guys still see the parole board to this day.
Wow.
If there's any alive still, which I think there's probably a few. So I say that because he was getting ready to go see the parole board. And so I imagine he was stressed the fuck out. So anyways, that's the Worm story. And I told that to Petramali because I remember when Worm hit me, to this day, I've never been, well, actually I have my boy Don the Bomb George. He hits as hard as Worm. He's a monster. But when Worm, it was the toughest fight I was ever in. Like the way that he punched me in my face, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm in for some shit. But that was a jail fight, so I was hitting him with bows. I kneed him in the stomach.
You felt that power with Steve.
Yeah, I felt that power with Steve. Steve had that.
Steve's crazy.
He's got the old man.
It's incredible.
So I was holding the mitts for him, and the motherfucker hits my mitt, and I'm like, all right, you got some motherfucking old man stream.
And
bro.
he's
Like,
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean, he's
Steve's a good guy.
yeah.
And I told him the word. I think I told him like an abridged version of that story.
Yeah, he loved this. But at that point when you're locked up, had you already had pro fights?
Mm-mm.
That was all after.
Yeah, it was all after. It was all after, man. I got into a load of fights in prison. Like, I know guys talk about this. Like, guys, and a lot of them are probably fronting and just, just capping about it. I'm not. I really got into an incredible amount of fights.
Why do you think that is, Sammy?
Because I had a sign on my face that said, like, with me, I'm not going to do anything about it. And every time I just did.
What was that sign? Like, what
I don't know. I just
But is it
feel
the
like,
same sign that I said over there? Is the same sign because people take you for being aggressive? Or
maybe,
people, yeah.
maybe, but like literally, and also prison. There's so many things. Like literally, bro. If I'm walking into, I remember instances like this. If I'm like walking by somebody or going to my cell or something, he looks at me. If you look at somebody for too long, now there's a problem because now I'm like, "What's up? You all good?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm all good. What's up? Are you all good?" Well, now nobody's all good.
Right.
What's up, motherfucker? Like, what's the problem?
Right.
And now there's a fight.
And Sam, is that how you were? Is that kind of what your mentality was on the street growing up?
Off and on. My life growing up was weird, man. Like, I come from a good family, bro. Like, my mom was a speech therapist. My dad worked at oil refineries. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were religious growing up and like.
Religious how? Like what?
I went
going
to synagogue. I went to temple. You know what I mean? Like
how
I
often?
got kicked. I mean, like I went to school there when I was a kid, and then I ended up getting kicked out for fighting.
Yeah.
But
I mean, talk just a little bit about Chicago. Like Chicago's a city I really like. I've only been there a couple times.
We moved to Chicago in the 90s.
Okay.
Before that, we were living in the suburbs of Cleveland.
Okay.
Right? That's
okay.
where we were living up until the mid-90s. And then my family moved.
Okay.
But I was locked up when they moved in. And so when I got out, I came out to Chicago.
Got it.
So I spent almost my entire childhood
in Cleveland.
No, I'm saying incarcerated.
Right, but you grow. When did you first get locked up?
13.
Got it.
13, and that was in Juvie in Ohio, Cuyahoga County Juvenile Detention Center. And then I started getting sent away, and then I was going to like mental institutions and all types of shit. So like from the time I was 13 until right before 18, I was just almost entirely in place.
Almost always for violence and fighting?
No, not all. I mean, yeah.
Drugs and...
Yeah, drugs. Yeah, back then when we were like in the 90s, we were smoking a lot of PCP.
Yeah.
That was like the big drug back then. They
Yeah.
called it Wiki Sticks.
Oh, Wiki Sticks? Yeah, they call it Boat by us.
Yeah, okay, Wiki Sticks. And in Cleveland, they used to call it Woo.
Yeah.
In Chicago, they call it Wiki.
Uh-huh.
You know, and so, you know, and that's like embalming fluid and phencyclidine or what, you know, whatever. And you know, so anyway, leaves, and guys roll like tobacco cigarettes and dip it, and those are called leaves. So yeah, I was big into drugs and big into just trouble, and I started hanging out with gangs and like when I was like an older teenager, and then I didn't need to do any of this. I just was literally attracted to just hanging out with people that I felt comfortable.
What do you think it was about them that made you feel comfortable? Like what did you dig about it?
Because I just loved, I don't know, I loved excitement. I loved, like, I was like stealing cars when I was 15. Like, I was learning how to peel columns on cars, the old cars that, you know, had the shifter up here, and we had to peel the columns and you know, break the steering wheel and pull the ignition up. And like, I was learning this when I was like 15, 16 years old, and, you know, stealing car. I stole a car one time that had already been stolen. I found the car that I was going to steal, and the column had already been peeled and like covered with a towel, and I ended up just stealing a stolen car.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But that's the type of guy. I was always just getting into trouble. And my best friend at the time, Jaron, who's dead, he died, he died November 19, 2011, who was my best friend in the world, you know. And it was just him and me growing up every day. We just were in some bullshit every day. Like, that was just my best friend. And he was like the athletic one. He was a gifted wrestler. He was a gifted football player. He was getting, you know, Big Ten letters from schools trying to scout him and stuff like that. He just his whole life up, and he was like the greatest guy. He was way better than me. He was a way better dude than me in every facet of life, which just trips me out right now. You know what I mean? Like, he was such he died, but it's crazy. Like, he was the dude that I thought for sure was like gonna go to the NFL or gonna, you know, and he's got a son who I love to this day, you know, Landon, and just he was just the best, you know, and that was just me and him every day growing up, you know.
What do you think he'd say, like, seeing you now and everything you're accomplishing and everything you're doing? Like,
he'd love it. He'd love it, but he would just be tripped out because nobody could have seen this shit.
Nobody could have seen
No.
that. How does that? Yeah, I know how that feels, man. And like, tell everybody just like what are you doing right now? Like, what are you working on? What are you doing?
So right now, I'm a writer on the TV show Power, Book 4, Force Season 2. We just wrapped the second season. I got brought in on the second season. On the first season, I was there as a stunt guy.
It's crazy.
Because I was a stunt man for 8.5 years.
Yeah.
And I went up to Joe Sikora, and I'm like, bro, I should be writing on this motherfucking show. Like, Tommy is the real me.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, I know all this.
I know Joe. Talk about Joe. Like,
he's the man.
And do you know? I mean, Joe and I we met because we did a play together back in the day. We became really good friends. And he told, it's another, again, like, I just don't know Chicago. I just don't know that part of the world. I met you there doing a movie, and that was the most time I ever spent there. I think I was there like 8 days.
Yeah.
But like, where Joe's from in Chicago, where is that area? Like
Jefferson Park. It's my old stomping ground.
So you guys kind of came from the same neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, I'm not from that specific neighborhood, but I used to hang out in that neighborhood all the time because the organization that I used to be a member of, which is the Insane C Notes, their neighborhoods were Smith Park, or are Smith Park, but back in the day there was a huge set in Jefferson Park, which was where Joe was from.
Got it.
And it's the northwest side of Chicago.
Got it.
Yeah.
And like when people talk about Chicago and people talk about, you know, it's like right now it's just like going through like all kinds of violence and like, yeah, like can you just sort of like explain what that, like for people who just have no idea what that, I mean, in DC we have something, in LA it's different.
So what specifically do you want me to?
Well, just like what you know, like, because when the time that I've spent in Chicago, it does not, like, you go to certain cities in America and it looks like if we were to go down to Shreveport right now, Shreveport doesn't look like, there's no parts of it that look like it's thriving, like it's a major metropolis of an American city with all the Chicago that I've seen. You know, I'm down on Lakeshore and all that. It's it seems unbelievably safe, unbelievably thriving. But then you hear
it's not. It's bullshit. Look, man. Chicago is one of the most, in my opinion, the most beautiful city in the country.
Yeah.
Right. You have obviously New York, right? LA is a hole, but like Chicago is gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
And there used to be a lot of safe areas in Chicago, right? There was a lot of safe, like Lincoln Park. And there's still pockets. I was just in Chicago with my wife last week. We were staying at the Waldorf. It's pretty safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was hanging out with my friend on the balcony smoking a cigar, and he points down to Oak Street and he goes, "You know that's where Duck got murdered? Duck, FBG Duck, who was a phenomenally talented drill rapper in Chicago, right? Got murdered a year or two ago, literally coming out of like I don't know what store it was, but it was like a Hermes or Prada, or, you know, right there on Oak Street in the Gold Coast, got gunned down by a few guys, murdered. And this is like the area where that doesn't happen. This is the Waldorf. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he points like, and I'm like, really? It was right there? He's like, bro, it was right there. So this is what I say about Chicago. Yeah, there's pockets that are okay. The problem is that is just the violence there is not like violence anywhere else. People
How so?
Because don't give a about anything in Chicago. I know LA might have been like that, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, something like that. I know New Orleans had like that, you know, Shreveport, stuff like that. DC,
Baltimore,
you know, Baltimore, right? Chicago is like, it's got its own gang culture, right?
Yeah.
So there is no Bloods and Crips in Chicago, right? There's a load of different organizations in Chicago, a bunch of them. Latin, Black, there used to be white gangs back in the day. There's not now. They kind of assimilated with Latino gangs, you know. But and then a lot of renegade organizations. So a lot of factions now that split off from their mobs, and so you got different mobs hanging out with each other, and they're like renegades, and they're just not abiding by any laws or bylines whatsoever. They're doing what the they want. And then you got the drill scene on the south side and the west side that's also influencing a lot of. And this is that it's not even right for me to speak on because it's not my. But like
you're not from there.
But I know a lot of going on. You know what I mean? Like and you, man, dude, I follow this Facebook page, Chicago Crime Chasers. This dude just goes from crime scene to crime scene every day, all day long, and none of it makes the news. None of it. But every day there's 7, 8 young kids getting murdered, women, kids, every day shot, every day. 0110 deceased. This is happening every day in Chicago, and you don't hear about this.
I guess the thing that the thing that seems so, it always hit me growing up, just like the hypocrisy of DC, right? Because you had this place that everybody went and visited, this sort of like pristine, magical federal land in the middle of the city, but then all around it was really rough, and it was just and the haves, it was like right in your face, right? And it was literally like there's a federal land and then there was a city was forgotten, and the way that it really worked was it was a city that was over 80% African American. It was really, it's like all the black folks lived in DC and nobody really, there was unbelievable amounts of crime, but then you had this other, and I guess, but now when I look, like, and that hypocrisy really sort of stuck with me as a kid. I guess now, like spending time in Baltimore, you go to Shreveport, you can sense, you can feel the hopelessness. You can feel that there's not, that there was industry, that there was chances. I guess the thing that's so weird to me about Chicago that I've never been able to understand, it seems like there's a ton of money there. It seems like there's a ton of, it's like
there is, especially in the dope game. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. But I guess just that's my question, Sam, is like you hear about how unbelievably dangerous it is, and you're saying people don't give a. Usually people don't give a when there's no alternative, and when there's no sort of like.
There's the gang culture in Chicago is not like other cities, right? So you got organizations that started out in the 50s, in the 40s and the 50s, You got organizations that started up as to protect the neighborhoods, right? Puerto Rican organizations, Italian, gangs, black gangs on the south side, and the west side, right? And then they, through time, just have developed beefs with each other, and you've got people beefing still about something that might have happened 30, 25 years ago, somebody getting killed, but that has led to other people getting killed, and bad blood that started from somebody banging somebody else's baby mama, and that turned into somebody getting killed. It's like, and that's just like a small example. There's so many things. And now, you got, that I didn't even really understand about till a couple of years ago, because I've been out for over 10 years, or, 10 years. And I've been, but now like understanding like how especially like hip hop and drill scene is like affecting a lot of crime and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of going on. A lot of people aren't speaking about it. They're not talking. They're just kind of turning a blind eye to it, And crime is just going everywhere in that city. And I wouldn't say it's safe. Like there are areas that's safe. There's probably gonna be some haters that are like, oh, I live in Chicago, it's safe. Like, all right, man. Until it's not, motherfucker. Until your ass is getting carjacked. I've had bricks thrown at my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, so whatever. I would say there's still nice areas. And guess what? After January 1st, when the Safety Act comes out, which is essentially them not gonna, there's gonna be no bail anymore for anybody besides first-degree murderers. So a second-degree murder, your ass is getting out no bail. And this is just with what they're doing. This is facts. This isn't me making it up.
And what? And tell me what the politics are behind it.
Votes, man. I think people trying to get votes. Oh, we're gonna let. Guess
but that's
what?
That's just a very liberal agenda that you think. Just like where do you think that comes from?
I don't know where it comes from. That's not my specialty in knowing where that type of comes
Understood,
from.
But you're somebody who's vastly experienced, right? I mean, you're somebody who now you're a writer. You're writing movies. You're writing TV shows. You live out here. You and look, man, you are a product of the penal system. You've been through it. I guess and at a time in your life, you lived as a criminal. You were doing criminal. And I guess my question to you is, do you feel that a soft on crime agenda or giving people chance after chance after chance as some do you feel like that helps to reduce crime?
No.
Like what would you say?
It's going to be a free for all. It's going to be a free for all.
So if you're the mayor of Chicago, how would you handle it?
I wouldn't all of a sudden say that we're going to embrace a cashless bail now. We're just going to let everybody out on their own recognizance.
Because if you're a criminal and you've got to do something for your gang, you're just like, dude, I'll do whatever.
It's like, I'll put it like this. In 2007, I got released from prison. I got out of prison after doing 5 years, 7 months, and some change. I was only out for a couple months. I went right back for 3 years.
Why did you go back?
I went back for UUWs, unauthorized use of a weapon. I got caught with 2 loaded pistols. I was on my way to do an armed robbery, and it would have been real bad. It would have been real bad. I got set up by the dude I was going to do the armed robbery with, right? He set me up because he got caught with some shit, and I didn't know about it, but the cops threw it in my face after they arrested me. You know, I got arrested on Addison and Kimball in Logan Square, and the cops were basically like laughing at me, telling me like, hey, your boy set you up, dumb. You know what I mean? I got caught with 2 loaded pistols. At that time, you had to sign a piece of paper when you got out of prison that basically said, if you get caught with weapons and you're on parole, your case is going to get picked up by the feds. The state's going to drop your case. You're going to get picked up by the feds, and they can give you up to 30 years at 85% federal time, right?
Wow.
I knew this. I was just shooting heroin and sticking motherfuckers up, so I didn't give a shit about my life. But when that happened, I say this. As soon as I got to the county jail, I didn't play with them at all. The first offer they gave me, I took it. They offered me 5 years on the guns and a year because I got caught with some PCP. I took 5 years with 1 year consecutive, and I rolled out to the county. I didn't want to deal with it because once you got convicted, the feds couldn't pick up your case.
So you're saying mentally knowing that there was this strict rule in place, it had a huge effect on you, and you knew what you were in for.
I'm telling you that story because I was talking to some friends. I still stay connected to people, just especially with my work with our art now. You know what I mean? I wanna still stay tuned in.
Yeah.
So I still got plenty of friends that I talk to, and they were telling me, and this was last year, like, bro, it's crazy out here. I says, what do you mean? He goes, look, bro, everybody's strapped out here. I said, really? I said, they're not pulling people over like that? He's like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, everybody's got pistols. And if you look at what's being reflected on the streets, you'll see that that's true. No matter what they put in the news, and I'm not into politics, by the way. I don't consider myself I don't subscribe to politics, but I do subscribe to bullshit. You know, I don't subscribe to bullshit, but I do recognize it, right? So when I see people talking about, the crime's down and this and that, like, no, it's not.
No.
So,
and you know nothing's going to incentivize. If motherfuckers know they can get away with it, if people know they can get away with it.
So if that was happening last year, and now there's not going to be, and there was cash bail, now there's not going to be cash bail.
Come on.
It's crazy. And I will say one more thing about this.
Please.
Okay? Because, I'm going to go there. So all these fake agendas like, locking up the wrong people and all. I know real people that don't deserve to be in prison right now. You know what I'm saying? Black guys that I'm close to that don't belong in prison. And while dudes that of all races, I'm not talking about any particular race, are getting locked up and let out under like the bull policies that are happening now that you know, people trying to cater to whatever agenda is happening. You know, my friend Yafet Davis, who's one of the greatest guys I know. He's been locked up since 1999. I've been paying for his lawyer for the last 9 years. I've never made a mother Instagram post about it, trying to clout chase with some bullshit because it's popular. For 8-9 years, I've been trying to get this guy out of prison. He's locked up for what should be a second-degree murder because he got kidnapped by another gang of guys and held for ransom, which is something that is common in Chicago. Like, you know, if you're a dope dealer, and I know you got plenty of money, I know you got 5 bricks back at the house or whatever, and we trunk your ass, beat the out of you, make you call your girl, bring 2 kilos and 100 G's, or we're gonna smoke this mother. That happens.
Sure.
That shit happens. That obviously doesn't make the news. Nobody's calling the authorities about such thing, right? That happened to my friend Yafet in 1999 in DeKalb because he was selling drugs out in a white, a college town, right? He got kidnapped by some rival guys, and when the exchange happened, when they beat the shit out of him, they separated his elbow, they f***ed him up real bad, broke his nose. This is all in the record, by the way. This is not like me just talking. This is in the factual record of the case because I have it all. Yeah. Right? This man did the exchange, and one of his guys had a pistol when they were doing the exchange. Yafet grabbed the pistol, turned around because he's just been beat up and
run for his life.
And he shot at some of these guys, and I guess one of the guys turned around, got hit, and bled out and died. That's not premeditated. Right. That's second degree. Yeah. Is it wrong? Sure. I'm not a judge. Is it wrong? Yeah. They gave him first degree murder, and they put him in jail for 64 years. He's been locked up, and he was, and get this, John, he was supposed to get out in 2011. He was supposed to get out in 2011. The state's attorney that put him away decided, okay, we're going to drop it to second degree. But they waited until after elections. After elections, a different state's attorney got elected. Didn't honor the agreement. And so he sits in prison right now helping young guys, trying to teach young guys a better way to go out. He knows more about the movie business than half of the people in Hollywood from me. I tell him everything about the movie business. This man could get out and be a agent at CAA. That's how much he knows about the business. You know what I mean? Because I keep him in tune with everything. But that's what I'm saying. You got guys like that are locked up that truly deserve a second chance.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. When you talk about especially like, your life in the beginning part of your life and getting in trouble and kind of bumping up against walls and shit like that, to what extent, if any, does sort of like your race or your religion like play into that?
I don't know. I mean, I experienced growing up, people calling me and, like that. I guess I wasn't really offended. I don't know. Maybe I was offended and I don't even know I was offended. That growing up, that was just I got bullied a little bit when I was a kid. I got bullied,
For what?
Just anything. I was a real small kid. I was real tiny. I always thought I was going to be tiny for my whole life because I was like 4'11" and I was like 15.
Is your folks big?
My father is it's in there. My father is my height, about 6 feet. My mom's like 5'7". But I was small. I got bullied quite a bit, and then I even remember the first time I went to juvie, I got bullied, and it was weird. I had like a defining moment to where I just stopped giving a and it was probably when I was 15-ish. Because I went back to juvie and some dude tried to punk me out in the chow hall for my cereal, and I said, nah, I'm not gonna give it to you. And I remember him telling me, like, when we get back up to the deck, that's your ass, motherfucker, I'm gonna fuck you up. And I remember sitting there looking at my cereal, and and then looking at him, and he was like sitting across from me on like another table, and there was a little walkway right in between us, and I remember my heart was beating because I knew I just got punked out, and I knew that if once
you knew it was coming,
he was gonna and I just remember looking at him, and he took a big bite of cereal, and I just counted to 3 in my head. I'm like, just do it. 1, 2, 3, and on 3 I got up and I punched him in the face, and he spit the cereal out on the other dude next to him, and I just started hitting him. And then the staff came and they picked me up like a log and carried me out of there. And back in those days, which was the 90s, they would put you in what's called the box, even as a juvenile. So they'd strip you out and they'd put you in a little cell, and all it had was a drain in the center of the cell, but it was just empty. And so you'd sit there for a few hours, and it's like solitary, I guess, and then they'd put you right back on the deck with the same people. But then after I went back on that deck, I started getting into fights. Like I got into a fight with that dude again, and we could play dominoes, right? He was a little bigger than me. You could play dominoes back then. So I had dominoes in my hand, and I beat the fuck out of him again. And then I just started punching everybody because I was just like, this is working. So I just started hitting people, and that's like when it all changed. But before that, I was getting bullied. I was kind of, it was.
What do you think that shift is? Just you had enough, or
I just stopped giving a fuck, and I realized like, oh, okay, this works. This works. Nobody's with me now. And I guess in a way it did, because I gained a lot of respect from other guys, other kids back then, you know. And that was kind of how I used to look at it as leading by example. I used to feel like I'm leading by example, right? I'm showing you that I'm not, you know, I'm not one of these motherfuckers that's gonna, you know, take any bullshit from this dude. And even all the way up into my adult criminal career when I was in, you know, prison, and you got a lot of guys in the joint, right? I'm talking about just Illinois, because I know it's different. I'm a expert on Illinois prisons.
right.
California, I don't know besides what I've heard and what I've watched on Shot Caller.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Illinois, I know about it. And the joints kind of got locked down after 97 to where the COs kind of took control. Before, gangs used to run the prisons.
Got it.
And when I came in at the end, right? To where like they had just taken back control of the prisons, and it was still kind of soft, but there was still motherfucking gang banging, like it was still popping off, but not like it used to be. And so what I say that because if you and me got into a beef in prison, you know, we'd be quick to fight. But then let's just say you got two other guys, and they'll be quick to fight one another. But then let's say a correctional officer is like, "Yo, Johnson, sit the down, punk," or whatever. And that dude's going to be like, okay, yeah, all right, motherfucker, and sit down, because they don't want what's coming behind that. They don't want the solitary confinement that's coming behind that. They don't want the possible case that they're going to get charged with, you know, and get another additional year on top of their sentence, and maybe even an outside court case. So they're going to, and so what I'm bringing this up because my mentality was so warped back then, where I'm like, I'm going to show you that I'm a stand-up motherfucker, in the sense that, like, if I got to get into it with an inmate and put in some work, I'm going to do it. But also, if a CO gets out of pocket, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to be phony and be one way.
And then not all the way around.
And that's why I ended up spending way more time in prison than I should have.
Did it mostly come down to the issue over the necklace?
No, I went to prison the first time, or I went to solitary confinement the first time. Well, in the county, I was going to SAG all the time for fights and shit like that. But gang activity initially in Shawnee Correctional Center in 2002, and then back then they would double you up in the bunk. So even though you're in the hole, you have a cellie, right? And then once a week you would go to the yard with other guys that are in solitary confinement in medium max prisons. So I would get into it with cellies and we'd fight. Now I got another 30 days. Then I'd get into it with somebody on the gallery talking on a Tuesday. And then, okay, I'll see you on the yard Friday, motherfucker. Well, now the word has been thrown out. Now we got to fight. So now Friday comes and we're going to the yard. Now we're fighting. Now they cock the gun, shoot it. Now that's a dangerous disturbance because they shot the gun off or they cocked the gun or whatever the Now you might get another year in the hole. So I turned that 6 months for a gang activity into 2 years and 8 months straight in the hole, right? In different prisons, because they would move you around. If you get over 6 months solitary, then they send you to a maximum security prison to finish the solitary confinement. And so then I would get into more fights, and all types of shit. Stateville, I got into it because there was a dude that was talking to the rabbi, the rabbi Benjamin Scheinman, one of the closest individuals to me, who really helped me. He would come and visit the Jewish inmates once a month, right? In whatever prison they were at. And Rabbi Scheinman had came to see me. It was 2005. And he was standing outside. We were in F House, which is the roundhouse. I think they shut it down now, but it's the one that's in the movie Bad Boys with Sean Penn. So I was in that thing a few times, a few different times.
And he's like a Chicago rabbi?
He's a Chicago Chabad Hasidic rabbi.
Okay.
And he would come, and his mission from the Rebbe was to visit every Jewish inmate once a month and talk to them. And if it was, Hanukkah, light the candles and just whatever. So he came to visit me, and somebody was on the gallery talking shit, and I heard them talking shit, and you could see everybody because you're in a
Heard them talking about the rabbi?
He was saying, "You Jew, get the fuck out of here." And I heard him, and back then, we had all of our chuck holes jimmied so that they wouldn't close. We'd stick gum and stuff and paper towels.
Tell them what that is.
So a chuck hole, when they pass, because we're in solitary confinement there. There's 4 stories in the roundhouse, and the bottom 2 are solid steel doors. And there's a little box, and what they do is, the idea is you open it up with a key. The CO will key it open so that they can pass your tray in to eat, right? And also, if you were going to the shower, you got to turn around and they'll handcuff you through the chuck hole. And I knew that this guy who was talking, I knew that he was an escape risk because he wore a green jumpsuit, which means that every 90 days he's got to change cells per the rules. And in Stateville, they're lazy. Like, the COs don't give a I mean, I personally loved my time there. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I'm saying, in comparison to like being down south where it was like brutal, Stateville, you could get away with a lot of shit because they don't give a So most of the COs are like from the city. They're from Joliet. They don't give a So I mean, you could smoke. I was smoking in solitary. I was smoking cigarettes and like just getting away with all types of shit. And so it was cool. And I bring that up because I knew that they were going to walk him past my cell, and they let him put his own property on the cart to move the property, and he had to move past my cell to a cell down the gallery. And so what I did is I let my cellie go to yard, and I stayed in the yard, and I made a soap sock. I put 2 soaps in a sock, tied a knot.
How much proximity from when he talked to the rabbi?
3 days.
3 days later.
I just sat and I didn't even tell myself.
Did the rabbi hear him talking smack?
Yeah, the rabbi was just very humble about it. The rabbi, it got so loud that the rabbi couldn't talk to me. So the rabbi was like, "I'll see you later." I said, "Okay," and he went off, right? And then what happened was, I had to, I'm like, I'm gonna get this motherfucker. I tried to bribe the CO to let me go into his cell. I tried to pay the CO off, and at that time, I'm thinking maybe I get away with it. I told him, like, "Look, bro, I'll have my people put $500 on, wire you $500.
You want to get your hands on this?
Yeah. I'm like, just open this, open the cell. Let me get up in there. And he was like, obviously the CO was like, nah. And then I was thinking of all different ways I could do it. Maybe shower day, if they let us out at the same time. What they did at that time in shower day is they would let out 4 or 5 cells at a time, and they'd put them in different showers in the unit, right? Because the roundhouse has 8 showers. So they'd let 8 people out at the same time, 4 cells. And so I figured maybe if I got out at the same time as him, then when I come back from the shower, I can go into his cell, pretending it's my cell, and get the cuffs off me. And then when he comes back, I could get him like that. But that didn't work out. So what ended up happening is a couple days later, we have yard. My cellie goes to yard, and this dude, because he's on escape risk, he doesn't go to yard. But he was moving cells, and he had to walk past my cell. Now, our chuck hole is open, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to get this mother. So they had him handcuffed in the front because he was pushing his own cart with the property. Because, again, the COs back then were lazy as a motherfucker. They were letting him do it, right? So he's pushing his cart, and he came by the cell once, and I knew he was going to have to come back. So I had the sock in my hand, and I had my hand out the chuck hole, bunched up. And as soon as he got a couple feet away, I let the sock drop, and I swung that motherfucker hard. And I guess I don't wish now, but like at the time, I wished I would have cracked him, but it must have hit him like in the nose. It must have like barely nicked him, because I just seen him. He was just like, boom, like that, and the thing was boom. And then he like reached in at me with his handcuffed hands through the chuck hole to try to grab me, and we talked to each other. And then I remember a week later, he blasted me with some piss. A week later, he got me, and that was a whole nother thing. But like, but that was like the cycle of nonsense that happens there. You know what I mean? And then that caused him, because then when he blasted me, I flipped out and told him, 'cause I knew he couldn't go to the yard, so I said, send your best representation to the yard, motherfucker. And nothing ever happened with that. We went to the yard. Nothing. It was what it was. But
when you say that rabbi was coming in and spending time with all the Jewish inmates, what was the Jewish inmate population like? I mean, did you guys all stick together? I mean,
No, man. Look, back then I was faking the funk, bro.
How so?
I respected the rabbi. So I spoke to him with respect, and I was always happy that he came and see me. But to say that I was like religious in prison, I wasn't. I was gangbanging in prison. But I liked the rabbi, and I enjoyed him coming to see me. And then when I got out of SEG and population, I liked being able to get movement and go get out of my cell for a couple hours and go hang out, you know? But then I would come right back and I'd be with my guys,
the same,
you know? But the rabbi, yeah, you know, he would come. There was quite a Jewish population of guys that were not doing what I was doing. They were really about it, you know? I tried. You know, I remember getting Judaism for Dummies when I was in SEG and reading that book and reading other books. And I was trying to develop some sense of spirituality. I wanted it real bad. I just didn't think it was for me, you know? But I always identified as that because guess what? I'm Jewish. I grew up Jewish, you know, and that's so.
And what was your relationship with your parents during all that?
So my mom, it's funny because I'm real close to my father now. I'm real close to my dad. I talk to him almost every day.
Where's he?
He's out here. They all moved out here.
That's
when I went to prison, they all came out here. So in 2002, when I went to Joint, they all moved out here. And now I live pretty close to him, which is awesome. But my relationship with my mom and dad, excuse me, in prison.
Thank you.
My father didn't write me much. My mom, she would take care of me. She would write me. She was my biggest advocate. My mom did everything for me. You know, she was just amazing. But I wouldn't say they really wrote me off, but they wrote me off when I got out of prison. Because when I got out of prison, I started getting right back into the same, you know. I had money because I got 25G from when I got beat up by the COs. I filed that lawsuit. I got out of prison 6 months early, and I got 25 stacks. And after the lawyer got, you know, 33.3%, I think I ended up with like almost 15,000, something like that. So I had an apartment, and then I bought 1/8 of a kilo of cocaine. And I was, you know, so I bought 4.5 ounces of cocaine. I was hustling with my boy, and like, you know, my parents just were like, you're out of there, you know. And then I started getting high on my own supply, and then I started selling coke just to buy dope. You know what I mean? It was madness, man.
And what broke you?
Well, I OD'd 3 different times. And when I say OD'd, ended up getting resuscitated with Narcan. So the first 2 times I was in a car with somebody, and I got lucky because the person in the car with me called the paramedics, called the police, and they were able to resuscitate me, like on the west side of Chicago. And then the last time I OD'd, I was in an apartment, and I just got into it with my girlfriend at the time, and we had gotten into it over some bullshit. And I had been trying to get away from this, so I hadn't got high in like 2-3 weeks, right? I broke the habit, and you know, I was sick for a while, and then I was cool. And then when I got into it with her, I went to one of my guys who sold dope at the time, but he didn't know that I did dope at all. And I was just, because I still had size on me, you know, I looked decent, you know. And I said, hey man, let me, you know, I got a gram from him. I was telling him like, oh, I got some custies out by my place and shit. I want to, you know, sell this shit. Like, let me get it. He's like, yeah, here you go, bro. So he gave me this shit, and I took it to my apartment, and I had a young kid that was my roommate. I was renting a room in this kid's apartment. He's like a college kid, you know. He saved my life. This kid saved my life. Jon Bernthal. And he was in the apartment with some young girl. Not young, she was like 20, but I'm saying, you know, we're in the apartment, and he sees me bust out the D. He's like, whoa, what are you doing? And I'm like, man, I'm getting high, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? What the fuck you think I'm doing? And he's like, nah, this kid got high a little bit, right? Which was crazy. I ended up renting a room from somebody that did dope, and I didn't even know that up until like 2 weeks earlier. But he's like, man, you haven't done it. He's like, Sammy, you ain't done it in a while, bro. Like, you might be doing a little too much. I'm like, yo, check this out. Shut the fuck up. I said, dog, I've been shooting dope since you were a shorty, dog. I said, don't try to tell me how to do my shit, homie. Yeah. And then all I remember is, you know, you're about to OD. As you push the plunger, you feel it. So what I mean by that is, normally when you shoot heroin, You depress the plunger, and then like a half a second later, bam, it hits you, and then you feel it come down the back of your throat, and you're in there like swimwear. But at the time, if you shoot heroin, if you start feeling it as you're pushing it, that's too strong. Yeah. The problem is that you don't stop.
Right.
You're just thinking like, oh, this is strong. Oh, and then all of a sudden you're pushing it, and next thing you know, bam, lights out. So I woke up in the hospital. And Alexian Brothers Hospital, because this was on the burbs where I had an apartment. And I just remember she told me, the nurse, like, I've never seen somebody that was your color get resuscitated in 20 years. She's like, you're the only person I've ever seen come in the color that you came in that we were able to save in 20 years. And my boy Jon, who saved me, told me that, like, he was asking them out there, like, hey, is he going to be all right? Is he going to be all right? And they said, we don't know. We don't know, kid. You know that. So it's a trip. But that didn't break me. Guess what? I still shot dope after that. I was so f***ed up in my brain at that time. I'd started doing MMA fights, right? I went to the MMA gym the next day, looking like a ghost. It was like wrestling day, and I was getting smashed. And motherfuckers were like, "Hey, Sammy, you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm cool." You know what I mean? And then my buddy Dennis Dumbrow, who's a awesome dude. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. He runs his own school out there in Chicago. At the time, he's like, hey, he's like, Sam, bro. He's like, you look really rough, man. He's like, you all right, man? You sick or something? I said, look, to be honest with you, Dennis, I just overdosed on heroin yesterday. And I had the paperwork in the car, and I pulled out the paperwork, and I showed him, and he just looked at me like I was a nutcase. He's like, oh, okay, bro. He's like, yeah, you might want to just, slow down a little bit.
Yeah. Just take it easy, Sammy.
So that happened, and then my best friend Jaron Carter overdosed on heroin. That was probably the toughest moment of my life. It desensitized me to death, period. I had plenty of friends that died prior to that, and I've had plenty of friends that have died since then, and relatives. But nothing hit me like when Jaron died, because he was the greatest human being in my life, ever. And so we met on the playground in 3rd grade in recess and got into a fight and became best friends. And that was my best friend until his death. And so, and it was like, and that's what attracted me to Power, by the way. Not to get on a tangent.
Go ahead.
But Power, is about this white dude and this black. Jaron was black. And Jaron and me were the real Ghost and Tommy. In my opinion, we were never drug lords. You know what I mean? So in that sense, no. But like, that was my mother guy. Everything together. Women, fighting, whatever that was my mother ace. Yeah. And so when he died, I remember just like bashing my head into a street sign like 50 times. His girl called me when I was eating sushi. And I thought, we had this thing where my chick at the time would call him and his chick would call me, and like we would talk him down from, whatever, each other were doing to him, you know what I mean? So it's okay, he's probably just doing this or that, and he'd do the same thing with my girl or whatever, and that was just like our thing. And so his girl called me like, hey, I'm eating right now, let me call you back. And so I hung up on her. And then after I got done eating my, sushi, I'm walking in the parking lot by myself. And I call her back like, what's up, Lindsay? What's going on? She's like, and she's flipping out. She tells me that he's dead, and I'm thinking she's speaking Mandarin. I'm like, what? I'm like, huh? Like, come again? What do you mean? And I'm like, slow down. And she's telling me that my best friend died, and I just like remember putting down the phone and just like I saw like a street sign, and I just started smashing my face into the street sign, and just that was the toughest. That was nothing tops that, man. So like, and I had one other close brother that passed away, but thankfully it wasn't from drugs, but that was from drugs, and then that made me mad because I wanted revenge, right? I wanted revenge, and there's no revenge to be had. Who am I gonna get revenge on? He shot dope and OD'd. There's nobody I could take it out on. Like, at least if it was somebody that did something to him, I could be like, all right, I'm gonna go smoke this motherfucker. At least I'm gonna get revenge, But I couldn't even do that. What did I do? I shot dope, like a creep. That's what I did, And so that lasted until I wanted to kill myself. And honestly, I had like a couple days. I don't know how I stayed sober for a couple days, but I went a couple days and I was feeling sick, and I didn't have a huge dope habit at the time, so it wasn't like super crazy, but I was doing it every day, but not super. I wasn't doing like 10 bags a day. I was doing like a bag a day. And I remember, being in front of, at a stop sign, and I was just like looking at the cars drive by, and I was just like, in my brain, I was just like, hit the gas, mother, don't be a, hit the gas, let the semi smash you, you know what I mean? Just like, take yourself out, this, you're a piece of shit. And I would just tell myself this every day, and I ended up going to an AA meeting, and I went to a meeting at a church at 8 a.m.
What was that? What was the impetus to go?
Well, look, my girl at the time was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and she was taking me to meetings, but it was a joke. Yeah. I didn't give a f***. Yeah. I was going there holding her hand, and then we were leaving and going and getting drunk and f***ed up. Like, I was just like, okay, yeah, girl, we'll do it, whatever. Yeah. I didn't give a f*** about that shit. I remember somebody telling me about AA in prison before I even knew I had a problem with anything. You know what I mean? This old man told me about AA, and I told him, that's for winos, dude. I'm like, that's for drunks. That's for losers. That's not for men. That's not for men that have that can stand on their own 2 feet. That's a crush, homie. And it's just crazy because drugs and alcohol took me down so hard that I ended up being like, I'm gonna go to 8 a.m. meeting, because I knew there was a meeting there, because my girl had told me about these meetings. So I went to this meeting, and I broke down, and I cried, which I haven't done at a meeting since then. But that was 10 years ago, and I remember just breaking down, and I got a sponsor, a guy to take me through the steps at that time, with the steps of AA. I know you're familiar with it, but it told me to do 90 meetings in 90 days. I did 90 meetings in 90 days. And I stayed with that stuff, man. And I stay with it today, and it's like a huge part of my life. I mean, I'm already this is how I am, sober. 10 years sobriety. This is me now. And like, I just, people don't even, well, imagine drunk Sam.
Dude.
With a little heroin.
Bro.
Well, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never know you, for one. So it's just like, it's
But then there's this thing, there's like this past. So then what? Is that then when you go into boxing?
So, I was doing MMA. I had 6 amateur MMA fights. I went 3-3.
And the spark for you to fight was basically like,
the spark for me to fight, because I was bouncing. I was bouncing at a club named La Margaritas. I was staying with a woman.
La Margaritas.
It was called La Margaritas. It's closed down. It was on Algonquin Street and Meacham in Rolling Meadows, Illinois. And I was staying with this girl. Excuse me. And I was being a degenerate because I wasn't paying rent, and I was living with her, and I got a job as a bouncer for $10 an hour, right? But this place was awesome. I became friends with everybody, and they let me do whatever I want. So like, I would be getting coked out in the basement, come up. I was a lazy bouncer. I was not somebody that liked to get into fights. I just happened to get into them. I actually did not enjoy. I just wanted to hang back and just chill and go get pitied out in the basement and just do me. I didn't want to deal with any nonsense, but that place that was open till 4 a.m. So when all the other places were shut down at 2 a.m., everybody came there. So you had the Latinos on the Mexican side, you had the black guys on the black side, you had all the white preppies. Everybody's drunk, getting in bullshit. Yeah. And I gotta be like, yo, be cool. And I'd be, hey, come on, man, like, you gotta go, man, because somebody would be like, hey, Sammy, you gotta get this guy out. Hey, you gotta go, partner. Nah, bro, I ain't going nowhere. I'm like, listen, bro, check this out. I don't want to touch you. I don't give a about this. It's not gonna end good for you, bro. Do you really want us to put our hands on you? I don't want to touch you. I want nothing to do with it. Yeah. You dog ain't gonna do. And now we're getting into it. Now so that's how I got hired and fired twice from that place. Yeah. But nonetheless, the owner of the gym, the owner of the bar, Junior, and his brother Victor, and their father Don Ramon, who are incredible people, they own this bar, and so they were like, man, you should fight. And I said, I've always wanted to, because in prison, that's what I was like, that's what I'm gonna do when I get out. Like, what else am I gonna do? I'm gonna be a fighter. I can't do anything else. I'm a convicted felon. Nobody wants to with me. Nobody wants to give me a job. I tried that when I got out the first time. Sure. Nobody would give me a job. You know, I was hopeless. So this time I'm like, I'm pretty decent at fighting, which is hilarious because I didn't really know how to fight like I do now. But back then I thought I did.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but I'm like, but they're like, oh, you should go. So they introduced me to a guy who ended up taking me to an MMA gym, and I started training in MMA. And I started having fights. And then MMA, I started going to the boxing gym through my buddy Sergio, my friend Sergio Aguirre, who was a Golden Glove champ. And he took me to the boxing gym. And so then I started boxing. And then I'm like, I'm not really cool with MMA. I don't really like MMA because I wasn't a very good wrestler, you know? I'm a good wrestler for people that don't know how to wrestle, but like the dudes I was wrestling with are like NCAA studs and state champs and shit were just smashing me. So I said, you know, I'm going to try boxing. So then I went to the boxing gym. And I really enjoyed the boxing gym. So I was doing that and having a lot of amateur fights. And then I said, F it, I'm going to box. So that's what I started doing. And at the time, I had met what would be my boxing promoter, Bobby Hitz, who's like the biggest boxing promoter in Chicago. And Bobby's also an actor. And he's a character. He's like this big, you know, he's a big, like, tough guy, you know, Italian guy, you know, Bobby Hitz. He's the man. I see him all the time, but he's like, hey, I'm consulting on this TV show, blah, 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 blah. Sammy, you should go and audition. I didn't even know what an audition was. Bro, I didn't know what an audition meant. I didn't know what that meant. He just tells me to go to a casting office. So I go to PR casting in Chicago. And they're like, hey, how you doing? Look tough. So I look tough. There it says, shadow box. So I shadow box. Bop, 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 you know? And then they're like, okay, can you say it? You know, act aggressive. Talk to me. And so I'm like, what's up, dog? What you want to do? You know, as I start getting aggressive, they're like, okay, all right, great. Thanks a lot, Sam. But thanks for coming in. So then, but check it out. So then I get put on a first avail. I get put on a hold for the role, which again, I didn't know what the that meant. I hadn't had any of this shit. So then, this is 10 years ago, right after I get sober. So then, they call me up and they say, hey, look, you know, we're going a different way. You know, you kind of look a little too similar to the top of the show guest star, his name's Eddie McClintock, who I'm also friends with to this day. And he don't look as close to me like you look. He's not like us, but we had similar haircuts and shit like that.
Okay.
And so they're like, hey, you know, we'd like you to come in and meet the stunt coordinator. And I said, I again, they're speaking gibberish, but I said, okay. So I went and met, and they made me his double. And it was a boxing thing. Oh, wow. It was boxing. Wow. So I did all the for 9 days on the entire pilot. Wow. And I'm flirting with the PAs.
Yeah. You get that set magic.
I don't do this now, but back in the day, when I didn't know, I was flirting with the girls. I was, you know, I think one of your co-stars from The Walking Dead was in this show. I forget her name, but I was talking to everybody. Christian Slater, Steve Zahn. I'm bullshitting all these guys, talking to them. Man, I remember you, mother Whirly from True Romance. That's my
Bro,
so yeah, it was my movie. So anyways, the hair and makeup ladies were like, you should be a stunt guy. And I'm like, what the is that? They're like, that's what you're doing. I'm like, what? They're like, you can make a living doing stunts. I said, get the out of here. You think so? They said, yeah. Like, you're in good shape. You got a great look. You can do this. I said, get the out of here. So then, I started doing it.
Oh, and you're boxing professionally now, too?
I just turned pro.
Just turned pro. Okay.
So then, I remember.
And as you're finding more and more sort of avenues to success, is that getting... Is that making you believe more and more in your sobriety? Are you spiritually?
At that time I didn't connect it to it. I didn't connect to it. I was staying sober because I'm just like, hey, it's working.
I got to be there tomorrow at 6 a.m. It's better to be sober.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's exactly. I was just like, it wasn't so much like that. Like it's just better to be sober. I'm just like, I'm feeling good about myself. I was feeling good about myself.
So it wasn't spiritual yet, but you something was happening.
Something was happening. I'm like doing good stuff now.
Yeah,
and like. people wanted to be around me. Nobody wanted to be around me besides people like me, if that makes sense. Those are the only people that wanted to be around me. I was somebody that people were just like, oh, I won't be around that guy. Except for if you were like me, then we were like, buddies.
What's up, dude? Yeah.
But I became an extra. I was working on the shows in Chicago as an extra. There's a film scene out there, as you know, and like, I remember this hater. I'm not gonna put his name out there, but he was a hater. And I remember I was walking. We were doing background on like season 1 of Chicago Fire. It was like 2014, and he's like, so what are you? And we had to walk back and forth in a scene, and he was like, so what are you trying to do, bro? I'm like, oh, I'm trying to get my SAG card so I can do stunts. He's like, he laughed in my face. He goes, huh? He goes, I've been at this for 5 years, pal. It's not going to be that easy, buddy. I said, you know what? If I don't get it, I'm just going to focus on boxing. I said, but I'm going to try to get a SAG card and do stunts. He's like, okay. And then, and I'm going to tell you this story just because it's vaguely interesting. So, I get on the pilot of Empire.
Wow.
Lee Daniels is directing the pilot, right? Now, I get called in as a boxer because the scene was Terrence Howard and the son, who I don't remember the name, but he did have a love scene with my wife in the show because she was on the show in season 2. But they are talking outside the ring, and they wanted me and like this big fighter to be moving around in the ring. He was an extra, but I knew him. I knew this dude. He was a heavyweight pro fighter.
He's a real fighter.
I mean, everybody was real fighters. We were all real fighters, just calling in, just being extras.
Right.
And so Lee Daniels calls me to go. He's like, what's your name? I'm like, Sammy. He goes, you box? I says, yeah. He goes, okay, can you just move around in the ring with Carl there? And I says, yeah, his name is Carl. I says, yeah, okay, sure. We're moving around. And then Lee Daniels goes, and there was no stunt coordinator on set, right? So he come up, he goes, hey, he goes up. And that set was the in between takes. I don't know if you ever worked with Lee Daniels. He's the he puts like music on in between takes.
That's cool.
He's wearing like a robe like Hugh Hefner. He's walking around. And it was the and he come up to me. He goes, hey, Sam. He goes, how would you feel about putting a little blood in your mouth, and then Carl here will try to punch you, and you'll just spit it out for camera? And I knew, because I'd been trying to be a stuntman for like 6 months at the time, but nobody would give me a job. Nobody would give me that break. I said, I feel real good about that, Mr. Daniel. So we set it up, right? We put the blood in my mouth. I let this dude crack me. Obviously, that's not how stunts work. Right. But I'm letting this dude.
I'm like, let's go.
Crack me. My face was red. And he was like, oh, you all right, Sam? I said, yeah, I'm good. Don't even trip, bro. Just do it. He's like, all right, man. So the gloves were like 14 ounces. So he cracked. Boom, I'm spitting the blood in the camera. Boom, I'm spitting the blood in the camera. Right? So then they get the shot. Lee's over there checking the footage, like, oh, that's great. Everybody's like, yeah, that was really great. So then the AD come up to me. He goes, man, that was really good. He goes, why don't you go back up to holding, pal? I said, where's my Taft-Hartley contract?
Good for you.
He goes, what do you mean, buddy? I go, what do you mean? What do I mean?
I said, like 6 times.
Yeah, bro. So I told him, I said, I just did a stunt, buddy. I said, just did a stunt, pal. I said, I want my Taft-Hartley. He goes, oh, I don't know about that. We might be able to give you like a $200 bump or something. I said, hey, listen, mother, I don't want my $200 bump. I want my Taft-Hartley contract. So then the line producer come up to me and he's like, hey, listen, buddy, there was no stunts today. We're gonna give you a $500 adjustment or bump or whatever they said, And I said, hey, listen, dude, you got that shit on camera, right? I want my card. You guys got it on camera. It's a stunt. Do we got to make a big deal about this? Like, what's going on? So he goes, go up to holding. I said, all right. So I go up to holding. All the extras, some of which I'm still friends with to this day because they got into stunts and acting, and they got their SAG cards and they're working now. But all of them are looking at me like a pariah, like you're about to get blackballed from the industry. And truth be told, the only reason I pulled this stunt, no pun intended, is because I thought that Empire was going to go to New York, because that's what the guys were telling me. They're filming the pilot here, but it takes place in New York.
So all these dudes would be gone anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about.
You're going with your reputation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I go up there, I'm waiting for like, they had me freezing up there for like 2 hours. And I'm just sitting there like, man. And the dudes are all looking at me. They're like feet away from me. They don't want to be next to me. They're like, man, bro, you f***ed up.
You spoke up for yourself.
So then a PA come up like 2 hours later. He's like, Horowitz. I go, what's up? He's like, let me see your driver's license. I'm like, what the f*** you want my driver's license for, dog? He's like, for your Taft-Hartley contract, man. I said, all right then, mother. Here you go, baby.
God bless you, Sammy.
You know, and that was it. And then after that, and Empire hired me back 5 times.
I bet.
And I booked a mother co-star on that in like season 4.
I bet, bro.
So it worked out.
Talk a little bit about the stunt. The stunt community is such like a.
It's awesome.
It's such a beautiful community and such a.
I love how
unrecognized. Much you're into it. And you know, it's always my best friends on set, and there's been no growth in the film and television business like Stunts. Now you have second unit and stunt coordinators directing movies, hugely successful. The things that the creativity and the ingenuity that the stunt community pulls off in both television and film is unprecedented. The growth, it's constantly one-upping itself, and it's unbelievably unrecognized by the entertainment system in a number of ways. But also just the way that the stunt. The way that like it works as a stunt guy. Talk about the hustle of being a stunt guy and like just like how hard that is and like how that goes down. You basically just got to show up on sets, right? And just be like, yo.
You don't know any to get a job?
To get a job. I mean, like just talk, because I think people think, you know, to be an actor or whatever it is, which is its own struggle, whatever. But it's like, you know, you got to get an agent, you got to get a manager. But like stunt guys, it's like, you know, you'll be on a set. I'm always hanging out with the stunt team. It's like every day you'll see guys go, they just walk. It's like walking into a gym, be like, hey man, I'm looking for a fight. You know what I mean? Like that's what being a stunt guy is like. Like talk about that hustle. And then there's all these factions. There's like gangs. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? There's teams, right? You know what I mean? It's like, well,
so
you're down with us.
Each other for real.
Exactly. And they talk a lot more. Right? Yeah, because a lot of them don't have the real. So yeah, talk a little bit about that a little bit.
Man, first of all, Stunts changed my life. Stunts gave me a life, man. Like Tom Lowell in Chicago, the greatest stunt coordinator I know. He's just a man. Gave me a chance, but yeah. So like, how you get jobs in stunts is you got to do it's literally the industry term is hustling, right? And it means something different for stunt people than it does for everybody else.
For sure.
So when you're hustling as a stunt performer, woman or man, right? You got to find out where they're shooting something. So let's say Punisher is shooting, you know what I mean? Let's just say they were shooting out here in Santa Clarita, right? Okay. And I find out my buddy's working on it, and I text my buddy. I says, "Hey, let me get the address. You got the call sheet?" So they'll do what they're not supposed to do, which is send me the call sheet.
Right.
Now I got the base camp, which is where all
and
the
you
actors
can't let
are.
anybody know that you got it from that person. Right.
No, that's sacred. You could never do that. You excommunicated. But so you get, and they're not going to ask you. Here's the thing. It's like an unspoken thing. Nobody asks you where'd you get the info. They just it's like you were meant to be there. It's crazy. Like so then the stunt person will then have to go to that location somehow,
get on set somehow
get on set. I have done the craziest. I have climbed fences. I've scaled walls. I've broken and entered so many times. I've climbed under fences. The gnarliest one was out in the valley in like Agua Dulce or some and I parked my car on like the freeway somewhere and I hiked up to the location because they had a security guard sitting like at the entrance to this ranch and I had my phone talking to nobody.
Right, pretending.
I'm walking from, I mean, if this guy had any, like, if he would have been like paying attention, he would have been like, why the is this guy walking from the highway
from the 210?
I'm like, hey, how you doing, pal? And I give him a wave. Hey, how you doing, buddy? And keep walking. Now I walk like a mile up to where the working trucks are, which are the trucks that carry all the equipment. That's not base camp where all the actors are. So now I get to the working trucks. I'm stressed because I don't know where the they're filming. I see little golf carts driving up to the location, and I'm like, how the everybody's on golf carts? I'm on foot. I'm gonna look suspicious. And then I see a couple PAs. After like an hour of me hanging out by the porta potties, you know what I mean? Like in the porta potty, like pretending to go to the bathroom, I spy a couple PAs running up to set. So I go run up with them like I'm a PA, and I get up to set, and then the stunt coordinator, who I will not name, was cool as he sees you. I have my headshot and resume tucked in my pants.
Yeah.
Before, they do email, but at the time you have your real
have you on, yeah.
I got this stuffed in my pants. I'm running up with him like a half mile, sweating in the desert, and we get up there and they're doing like a shootout, right? So I'm like hanging back. They get the shootout. They call cut. I don't know what the stunt coordinator looks like, so I'm on IMDb, barely have a signal. See the picture of the guy. Okay, I'm trying to find this motherfucker. I see him. Yeah. I knock him on the shoulder. I go, hey sir, how you doing? I'm Sammy Horowitz. I'm a pro fighter trying to get a job. He looks at me like I was invited in this motherfucker. Like I got driven up. Oh, hey, Sammy. Thanks for stopping by, pal.
Yeah, it's a job interview. Yeah.
Glad you could stop by, buddy.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for your interest.
Can I drop off my stuff to you? Yeah, sure. Oh, I see you work for so-and-so. Oh, that's good. Oh, he's my pal. Yeah, he's a good guy. Okay, great. Hey, I'll try to give you a call. And then you pray that you'll get a job, which fortunately for me, that's what got me in out here in LA is I did this over and over again.
And sometimes you go and people are like, get the fuck out of here, right? Like sometimes you're met with hostility or like, because the community can also, I've seen the community be like, man, who is this clown kind of thing, just like anything else.
So thank God that has not happened to me.
Yeah, thank God.
It has not happened. Yeah, it's not happened to me.
Yeah.
Every coordinator, I'm not saying all the coordinators have been like buddy, hey buddy, but every coordinator, male or female, have usually met me with respect. And like it's always comical because they always act like you didn't just break 5 laws to get there. Excuse me, but yeah, they've all been cool with me. But I've heard horror stories though of like coordinators ripping up headshots in front of them. Get the out of here, mother. You know what I mean?
I've seen that.
Yeah, thank God that didn't happen to me.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think just the state, I mean, there's so much more I want to talk to you about, but what do you think just in the sort of like the state of stunts, like one of the things that, I go back to a lot, man, is Jon, he passed on the set of The Walking Dead. I don't know if you know about that, dude.
I'm friends with Jon Bernthal,
widow.
Very good friend. I know him, and I obviously didn't work on The Walking Dead. But I'm familiar with what happened, and I think every stunt person is familiar with what happened, and it was a tragedy.
I mean, can you? I'm curious, just from being in the community. It's like I know the story both from the community, and I know the story from the folks involved in The Walking Dead. For the sort of, and I'm just wondering. I'm really interested in the. What was the story in your mind? Like, what have you heard that went down with Jon?
I mean, obviously,
inarguably, he was ridiculously talented.
He was extremely talented. I don't know him, and I kind of feel uncomfortable speaking about it because I don't know. I wasn't there. But at the end of the day, the coordinator is responsible for what happens on those things, and that coordinator was responsible for what happened. And that was a tragedy, and it shouldn't have happened. And every single person I've ever talked about or I've ever talked to about him, Jon Bernthal, told me that he was incredibly gifted and talented.
I knew that. I mean, I can tell you that.
And so that shouldn't have happened. And it was so being somebody that I don't want to speak too much on something I don't know, but I will say that. All I will say is that the coordinator is responsible when those type of things happen. And that's why coordinators are so important.
The reason I bring it up with you, Sammy, is because, the story, I'll talk about it. I mean, the story that I heard, I mean, we know how he passed. He did a roof jump, right?
Yeah.
And
a high fall,
right? And a couple stories.
It's like 20 feet, something like
and,
that, 22 feet.
Something that, for a trained stunt guy like Jon is not a huge huge stunt. So I've done that, and there was some what we can't know whether there was some contact with the actor, but what we do know is that it was the end of the night, and a lot of times on these shows, the stunts to save money are moved to the very end of the night, even though it's by far and away the most dangerous thing that you're going to be doing all day, but it's sort of the last thing. And that's when I was sort of like the disrespect that goes to the stunt community. Yeah. It's sort of like, okay, you're this extra thing that goes in the end. Yeah. But I was on a show, Walking Dead and Punisher, it's enormously stunt heavy. I mean, you could argue that people watch The Punisher not for me being all angry, and they watch it for the fights and for the action.
Yeah,
so
Frank
it's
Castle
just as
being
much.
a bad
That's it. And so so if half the audience is, if at least half the audience is tuning in for that, you would think that they would be given the respect and the time, to honor the previs, to honor both the safety and the creativity of the team that's making it. But that stunt was moved to deep into the end of the night. And the story that I've been told by multiple people is that anytime you do a high fall like that, you position stuntmen or stunt people on the corners of the bag. So if you're falling off, there's a big a pad, a big giant mat that you're falling into, and that you have
or airbag.
Yeah. But you have trained stunt people on all corners just in case there's a mistake. You can move it. Mm-hmm. And what I heard is that those people were on all four corners, and a producer had walked by and asked what they were doing there because they were moving it to the end of the night. So the producer said, we're not paying for these people to be sitting around here all night, and that they were released. Have you heard that?
No.
So that's the story that got back to me, that these people were told to go home.
Those motherfuckers should be never work again if that's true.
So
if that's true, those people should never work. That sounds like it could. That sounds like something.
It's the story I heard. And then Jon, on the night was up there with an actor that I know, and it was during rehearsal. It wasn't even the stunt. Again, that's what I heard. And there was some contact, and there was supposed to be no contact, and he tried to right the fall.
That's what I heard.
And he missed the bag by 2 feet. And since there was no safety, he died. And you're like, these things happen like way more than I think anybody has any idea. You know what I mean? People are getting, stunt folks are getting seriously injured, and
often, which is why stunt people get paid
extra for exactly. And if there's an injury, you get paid extra. And then there's a lot about sort of how it was dealt with afterwards, which was pretty disgusting too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and also, that coordinator's still working, still on that show. And I mean, I don't know if that show's still going, honestly, but
it's the last year,
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's still there. I've never met the man, but it just money talk. Hollywood's what to say. I mean, I make a living in it, but it's a up business where people try to cut corners a lot, and the one thing that corners should not be cut in is safety.
Happens
and having the right people for the job that can perform the job. And in Jon's case, he was the right person. But I'm talking about, in that case, having stunt safeties there when they should have been there. Not what else can I say on it? I mean, I've been blessed that I've worked around a lot of great people, and thankfully the shows that I've worked on, the movies I've worked on with some of the best coordinators and who have fought for their performers. No. That person needs to be here. Your overtime, they're gonna work. Thankfully, I've been on those shows. But I've heard about the horror stories of the coordinators that get ran over and just like, okay, sure, yeah.
You're a full blown writer and an artist. Now, did that start with Godshot? Like, what's the?
So I was going to a therapist. Because I'm a f***ed up individual, and I would tell my therapist stories about my life, and my therapist wanted to write a book on me, so he said, I'd like to stop a professional relationship with you as with the patient client or the patient therapist, whatever, and we should write a book together. I think we can make a lot of money. And I was going to do that with him. We were going to call it Green Eggs and Sam.
That's a terrible title, bro. And I feel like that's wildly unprofessional of that therapist, man.
Yeah, so that's what my wife said, who was my girlfriend at the time, Sari Sanchez, who is the best actor in the world. Told her that, and she's like, you can't do that. She's like, have you ever thought about writing a movie? And I says, no. And by the way, John, the reason that I thought about this stuff, about writing it, is because after he put that in my head, was because I started forgetting things. And sometimes I forget things. And I was worried that I was losing my memory because of boxing and drugs, of all the drug abuse I did, all the heroin, all the PCP. And I started losing my memory. And I still, some things are very foggy to me. You know, I get memory loss and stuff like that. Which could be some CTE stuff. But essentially what happened was, she goes, you should write a movie. I said, I don't know how to write a movie. She goes, well, listen, I got this friend. His name's Adam Payson. You guys are very different, but he's in LA. He's like the best screenwriter I've ever met. You should go meet him. And I said, all right. So I go out to LA. I was still living in Chicago. And I meet Adam for coffee in Koreatown. And Adam, who you've met, is like this big gay guy. And I'm me. And I had never had a gay friend before in my life. I just haven't. And at that time, because in prison, you don't, it's just is what it is. You don't associate with gay people in prison unless you are gay, or else you will get violated and fucked up. So I was kind of coming out of that mentality, but I came and met Adam, and he's one of the greatest guys in the world, and he's my best friend now. But at that time, I was very wary, and Sari was very worried how I was going to react to him. And he was like, and I know Adam was very wary. Adam was like, what the f-? Because he's like, I cheated on my GED in the county jail, and got the teacher to cheat on the Constitution for me so I could pass. And Adam has a doctorate, you know what I mean? Right. And is a genius. Right. And so I met Adam, and I started telling him stories. And he was like, well, that's not really how 3-act structure work. And I'm like, motherfucker, this is how the movie's going to be. This is how it's got to be in this order chronologically, motherfucker. This is how it's got to go. And Adam's like, okay. He fucking starts typing and shit. And Adam's brilliant. But and now Adam, what's funny is now Adam can capture voices like me in the way that I do.
Beautiful collaboration.
But at the time, though, his idea of how people like me and my friends and people that I knew spoke were just a little different. And so I'd be like, nah, man, like that's not how they talk. They're not going to say that. And so Adam was like, all right, motherfucker, you didn't call me a motherfucker, but he says, all right, Sam, here you go. Take the computer. Go ahead. So I started typing, and thanks to computer technology class in Mount Sterling, Western Correctional Center, circa 2009, I type like 80 words a minute, baby. And I was back down like smackdown on that computer, typing. And so Adam was like, okay, all right. And so then Adam gave me books to read. And I was always a big reader. And so he gave me the Screenwriter's Bible. He gave me Save the Cat. And I read these books, and I learned how to write. And I took a MFA in the school of Adam Payson, and he taught me every single thing I know about structure and grammar and everything. And so, like, he showed me over the course of like 2 years how to write, and we wrote this movie together. And it started out initially with him writing the movie, and it ended with us completely collaborating and writing the movie. And then after we wrote this movie, we got the movie optioned, and but I'm speeding up a little bit because what happened was I dropped your name to get the motherfucker option, because what happened was so check it out. So my buddy Corey, who's a phenomenal stunt coordinator, and he is also a director, Corey DeMeyers, won Taurus Awards, which is the Oscars for stunts, as you know, but for everybody else. And he's also a director now, and he directed a film of mine that we did and had out on the festival circuit and whatnot. And so Corey was coordinating a movie with a Chicago producer. And Corey told him, like, hey, I know a guy from Chicago who wrote a pretty dope movie. You should check it out. And he read it. And then I had this idea as I was watching the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor fight. and I was on my way to watch that fight at a friend's house, and I had this idea that it was right after I doubled you on Widows.
Yeah.
And I called my girl, and I said, baby, I got a mother idea. She goes, what's up? I go, Jon Bernthal plays me, and I'm going to stunt double him while he plays me, and then I'm going to have a cameo at the end playing Bernthal.
Playing Bernthal
she's
as the
like,
actor.
She's
It's
like, yeah,
genius.
she's like, well, that's brilliant, but how the are you going to get to Bernthal? I said, Bernthal up and gave me his phone number on the mother set. You know you up. So
what are you talking about?
So whatever. But that's how the conversation happened. So then I hit you up and I told you what I told you, which was, throw the script away in 10 pages if you don't like it. And it was a very old draft of the script. And you talked to me and you called me and we had a conversation about it. And I name dropped you to this producer. And whoop, the motherfucker got option, baby. And then that went nowhere. But,
Well, hey, but
Hollywood.
Tell the story of Godshot. Tell the story what it is.
Yeah, so Godshot is the story about, it's based on my life. And it's about, a kid that grows up, gang banging, in and out of jail, in and out of drugs, in and out of trouble. And his best friend, Jaron, my best friend, grows up and he's straight. Football player, wrestler, and he becomes an incredible asset to society in a good way. My character becomes a fucked up person and goes to prison. And so it's about a guy that makes all the wrong choices and feels like he's irredeemable to society. Mm. He's involved with gangs, he's involved with drugs, and he doesn't think he has anything to give the world. And then, by chance, one of his boys is watching a TV show, which is what happened to me, and said, you look just like this motherfucker on TV. And it was a joke. It was a joke to me. I'd be like, ha, ha, ha. When I go to Starbucks, people used to be like, oh, my God, you look just like Jon Bernthal, blah, 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 blah. Be like, yeah, can I get a free macchiato?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Did you ever get a free macchiato?
No. No, they were very unimpressed when I was like, yeah, I'm his double, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no discount. Anyways. I got a discount one time. Anyways. No, but you know what? The story is about a guy that, it's a redemption story. It's about a guy that makes all the wrong choices. Had the opportunity to make some good choices, got sucked into all the bullshit, got sucked into hopelessness, and decided to change his life. Yeah. And he changed his life through stunts. And he became a stunt man, just like me. And he was able to actually do all the things he did as a criminal, but do it in Hollywood and make a living doing it. Right. And that's what happened to me. I remember on sets doing stick-ups and stuff on set, and the coordinator would be like, man, Sammy, like, hey, you're real natural. That's real good.
Really into character there, but totally.
And that happened to me. And what changed my life is when a guy told me on a set one day, he says, you can make a living playing the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I did. Yeah. And I did. For 8 years, I made a living playing the bad guy. And it's about, and Godshot is a story about a guy who loses it all, comes up through the and his best friend doesn't, and he's striving hard to change his life, but he doesn't think he ever can. And then when he does try to change his life, his old way of life pulls him back in. So it's him trying to get out of the life, but his life ain't ready for him to change, and his life is trying to pull him back to the bullshit. And it's that struggle of him trying to get out of the bullshit.
And how about now? You're 10 years out. You're a writer. Do you ever feel that struggle anymore? Does that life ever pull you back in? Or do you feel like, what does that feel? Is it always with you?
Yeah, it's in my back pocket. It's weird because my old self is in my back pocket.
Always. And it serves you in many, many ways, I imagine.
In some ways it does, but at the same time, and that same token, I don't think like I used to think, right? I don't think how I used to think. I mean, how so? If somebody gives me too much change at the grocery store, I give it back to them. If somebody disrespects me, I can just smile, okay. You know, whereas like back in the day, I would slap a motherfucker across the. I've literally in prison. Guys talk about this shit and they're faking the funk. I am not that guy. I remember instances in jail slapping motherfuckers across the face, full 5 fingers from Texas for disrespecting me. Whereas now, people have said things way more flagrantly insulting. You know, professional writer, and
I kind of like insultive.
And now I've and this is what AA has done for me. It's done so much more than keep me sober. It's taught me how to live. It's taught me how to treat people differently and good and have a moral compass that I didn't used to have. I didn't have a moral compass. Yeah. You know, if I went into somebody's house and I saw something nice, oh, it's nice. Yeah. Maybe it should be mine. Yeah. Saw a Rolex, oh, that should be mine. Let me hit that dude over his head and drag him in the alley and take it because, you know, why not? And the way I think now, when I think back to old me, it's like watching a movie of another human being. It's like watching a movie of somebody else that I don't relate to no more. I don't relate to that guy anymore. My friends that knew me back then, the ones that are still alive, are flabbergasted with me now. Yeah, they don't get it because I don't think like that no more. But is the old me, does he occasionally peekaboo? Yes, it happens occasionally. You know, it's happened once or twice.
But you use it in your art all the time.
I do.
I don't know. I don't think it's ever really about like abandoning it fully. It's who you were and you got through it, and it's like if you can then use it for positivity, which with what you're doing, and think about the life lessons you learned. You're gonna impart that on your children one day. You know what I mean?
My dream now.
Yeah.
I care about this. I care about this a lot. Like I care about Ray. I care about Adam. I care about my wife. You know what I mean? Like we've all came up from having nothing in this business to doing this now, you know. But it brought me joy to work on sets and to be a stunt man and to be an actor and to get into another character. And it was easy. I'm not a transformational actor, but I can play a guy like me pretty well, you know what I mean? And so like and so I love doing it, and I love being able to provide for my family and you know, make money and do it the legal way and the good way.
It's beautiful.
But what I would love to do, I would be just as happy opening up a motherfucking boxing gym in the ghetto somewhere and having enough money where I don't have to charge nobody nothing and they just come and train. That's what I would love to do. That's what I would love to do. This is a job that I enjoy and I'm good at it. I'm good at writing. I can speak for a lawyer. I can speak for a criminal. I can speak for a gang member. I can speak for so many different people that have been in my life. You know, people that have entered my life. Doctors. I know how they talk. I have a thing with dialogue where I can hear how people talk and I can say it. You know, especially people like me.
People don't realize how unbelievably like. It's what I say a lot about acting, right? Like so many people just wake up one day and they say, "Hey, I'm gonna be an actor. Yeah. I could be an actor." They're every bit as much of an actor as I am, or you are. Like they come out here, "Hey, you're an actor." Like, "Hey, man, you don't need a degree, right?" Yeah. There is no words for how hard it is to become a professional writer. Everybody and their cousin in this town is a writer. It's got a script. It's got an idea. Yeah. And the fact, man, I will say, man, and I can also say it's similarly to break into the stunt community, similarly to be a professional boxer, similarly to, but the writing thing, I mean, like like you are a excellent writer. I mean, what you guys do together it's really unbelievable.
I mean, Adam is my other half. Adam is my other half.
I can imagine. Maybe he's your other 3/4. You know what I mean? I don't know but the point being, man, is just that. You know, and look, I talk about it all the time. I make no, you know, I don't try to hide any of the mistakes I've made or kind of where I come from. But you know, I think it's like these two things, man. Like you have to live some life. Like you have to go through some. And if you can get out of that and then use that for some positivity. And look, it's the same thing. What did you say your dream is? Your dream is to open a gym and say, "Hey, man, everybody can come train here for free."
That's what I want to do.
What would that have done for you? What would that do? Like, what could that do? It's like it's all in the act of service. I think making art is service. I think it's giving back. It's you know, and I
believe that. I believe that giving back. I'm trying to put good stuff back out there.
Yeah,
you know, I'm trying to put a lot better stuff out there than what I did before.
Well, speaking authentically to that story is putting it back, and you know what I mean.
Well, I want to talk about Gary Lennon. Because he's the one that gave me my break in writing.
Yeah.
So
he's a G too.
He's a G.
Yeah.
He's one of the greatest, just honest, real. You talking about real mother. I wrote a play, right? I've written 4 plays.
Damn.
But I wrote I never knew nothing about theater. And I read one play at that time called A Mother the Hat by Stephen Adly Guirgis.
Love it.
And I couldn't believe
Yeah.
that somebody could say that stuff, because to me, theater was like Shakespeare. I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And so my wife, who's done 100 plays, you know, and you know, she goes, "Oh yeah, you know, you can write whatever you want in theater." I said, "Really?" So I had read that play, and I'm like, okay, I figured out the structure of it, and she's like, yeah, it's through dialogue. It's more dialogue, less action. I said, okay. So I came up with this story in my head called Musket and the Rat, right? And it's about a girl named Musket Cherry who sells heroin out of her mom's basement, and her mom's an alcoholic, and her dad's out of the picture, and her little brother's the one thing in her life that she really, you know, cares about, and he's a good kid. And he ends up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he gets locked up for something he didn't do. And he's in Cook County Jail. And so she's got to bail him out of jail. And she sends her boyfriend to go re-up on the drugs. And the boyfriend gets jumped by some rival gang members in Chicago. And that sets the whole thing in motion, because now she don't got the cash to get him out of the county. And it's life or death, right? And I came up with this story. And I was telling Adam, and Adam's like, "Oh, you should probably write a play about it." And so I wrote this play, not knowing what the I was doing. And I was teaching a boxing class in Hollywood, and some dude was talking about like theater and whatever, and we're talking, and I go, "I'm a playwright," and he looked at me like I was a idiot. He's like, "Oh, really, buddy?" I says, "Yeah." He goes, "Can I read it?" I said, "Absolutely." And so I emailed it to him, and then the next week I get an email back. "Hey, Sam, can you come to Groundworks and we can have a coffee? I'd love to talk to you." I said, "Sure." So we met in Larchmont on you know, at Groundworks. Simon Lee's a great guy, nice guy. And he goes, "I want to produce your play. I want to put this play up." I had no idea how tough this shit. I've since realized how like what an anomaly that was.
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
I can't even get an invite, bro.
I'm pretty sure I invited you, and you're
can't
famous.
invite, bro. What do you mean I'm famous? What is
I'm-
that? How do you not invite? How
Hey.
do you not invite me to that,
I'm
bro?
reasonably certain I at least emailed you.
He
and
definitely
whether or
did
not
not email me. I would have definitely been at that play.
Okay, well, I the play went up. Okay,
Where'd
whether or
you
not
do
you
the
got,
play?
I might not. Honestly, I might not send you a invite to it.
No, you definitely did. I'm not like you definitely. I would have known. I had
Okay.
no idea you wrote a play.
Yeah. All right. Well, I wrote.
Send me your play. You got any plays for me? I want to do a play.
Yeah, I got. Well, I'm
Let's
trying.
do a
I'm
play
trying to
in
put.
Ojai.
I'm trying to put this play. I'm trying to put this play up right now.
Well, I can't play a chip girl who's selling heroin.
there's-
You know, I don't do it like
there's other characters.
I ain't doing the small part,
You're
bro.
not- there's other characters in the play, but I wrote this play and it got put up in Hollywood, and it had a stellar opening and a stellar run.
It's amazing.
And yeah, and what happened was an agent from CAA came to the play, and she came up to me afterwards and she goes, "You wrote this?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Wow, you're really good with dialogue." I said, "Thanks a lot." And Adam was in the play, by the way. Adam played Gay Stevie. There's a character named Gay Stevie, and Adam played that. And so in any event, he was brilliant. But she comes, she says, "It's really good dialogue." I said, "Thank you." She goes, "You ever heard of a guy named Gary Lennon?" I said, "No, I'm sorry, I haven't." She goes, "Oh, he's kind of like you, and he's doing TV now." I didn't know Gary Lennon's one of the best and
Yeah, he's
brightest
great.
and biggest showrunners in the country, world at the time, but I didn't know who the fuck he was. I Googled him, though, and read all of his afterwards, and then I had a coffee with him. And when I got the coffee with him through this agent, Gary goes to me, he says, "So what kind of stuff would you want to write?" I said, "Whatever the you're doing." And he laughed at me. He said, "Good answer." And Gary is the one that took over Power Book 4,
Yep.
Season 2. And Gary fought for Adam and I to get in the room. And Gary is the reason that we got into the Writers Guild, and we did it after years of trying to get our scripts to people and trying to get this going and just failing and getting to the top 25 of the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop out of 2,500 people, the best writers in the world, getting to the top 25, interviewing with executives only to be called up and said, sorry, we don't got a spot for you this year, and wanting to jump off the balcony of my 4-story condo. And it just, and that's But that's how it happened. You know, it wasn't just like.
And so is Gary the showrunner now?
Yeah. Gary's
what else is he doing?
He's got a bunch of TV shows. He was an EP on Euphoria and Orange is the New Black and you know, I mean, he's just he did the original Power. He's really good friends with Joe Sikora. Yeah. You know, it was
no, they all loved him. And what was her name? What was the Leela Loren? I remember she telling me how much she loved him and
from Power.
Yeah. Gary Lennon. Yeah, man, I want to meet him, man.
He's so great, and he's the one. He gave me my shot.
That's beautiful.
He gave it to me. They say in Hollywood, everybody wants to give you your second big break, and he gave me my first big break.
I love it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's awesome. But that's what happened. But I'd love to do a play with you. Let's
do a play, bro.
All right.
Let's do a play. Yeah. I'm talking. That's his better half is over there. Hey. So, mate, you know, I'm also just curious. You know, I wanted you to tell the story of the necklace in jail, and just one thing, just overall, man, is I'm really curious right now how you're feeling. Something you and I have kind of talked to
Judaism.
About, like about Judaism, man. But I feel like it's an interesting time right now, like with that, like, you know, Kanye said, and with this stuff that's like kind of out there. And you know, one of the first stories you told me is a story of like how you got in trouble when you were locked up with your chain, and then today you told me the story about the guy up because he made fun of the rabbi. And I'm just wondering, like, can you just talk a little bit about like your sense of Judaism and your sense of like how you feel about it? I don't know. I mean, like, do you feel any certain type of way right now about like the state of anti-Semitism?
Yeah. I feel like anti-Semitism is the only thing that's okay now. That's what I feel. That's how I feel. Watching or reading the trades and the news articles and things like that, it's like, man, it's like Jews are the one people that you could bash on and then put out false propaganda on online. And people believe it because of social media, because you post something and it's out there for millions, and then you get a TikToker with 20 million followers to repost it, you know what I mean, just because somebody told him to, and now you got a bunch of young people that don't understand what they're following. Also, oh yeah, like Jews are bad. Oh yeah, they control the media. Oh yeah, they control Hollywood. No, they don't.
Well, it's that self-fulfilling.
At least I wish they did. I would have had a lot easier time kicking indoors in this motherfucker to get a job.
But it's that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like you say, you go out there and you make these kind of comments, these racist, anti-Semitic comments, and you say Jews control everything. Then you get kicked off a platform for it, and then you say, see, they control everything.
And I don't agree with that either, right? I don't agree with that either.
Tell me.
I don't agree with people losing the right to speak on anything or having their platforms revoked. I don't agree with any of that. That's not me.
That's not America.
No, that's not America. You could say what you want to say if it's. Yeah, you know, people have to deal with the consequences of what they say. Just like when you commit a crime, you got to deal with the consequences of committing that crime. And even if you don't get caught, you got to deal with the moral consequences and the consequences in here of doing that. But as far as people like losing their privileges to speak and express themselves because they might have said something wrong or did something wrong, no, it's f***ed up. Do I think Kanye's f***ed up for what he said? Yeah, I do. I think he's a brilliant dude. Like, honestly, I think the guy's a genius. You know, like musical genius. I don't think he's a genius with that, you know, him. But he's a great musician, among other things. But no, I think he missed the mark there. I think a lot of people missed the mark with that stuff. I see a lot of being shared about Jews in particular that I don't agree with. But who the f*** am I?
And how
stunt guy that became a writer? Nobody gives a f*** what I say.
Well, you know, I give a f***, bro, and I think people do, and I
man, I'm gonna tell you one more story real quick. I'll tell you about a dude, NFL football player. I was working at Jersey Mike's, right? 10 years ago. 11 years ago. I had to get a job because of parole. I get a job at Jersey Mike's, streets of Woodfield in the suburbs in Schaumburg. I'm the guy that asked you if you wanted your sandwich Mike's way, right? And then, for real, check it out. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to put him out there like that. But a football player came in.
Famous football player.
Famous football player, kicker, came in, right? He came in golf attire. I was a fan, right? And I started bullshitting with him. What's up? I said, what's your handicap? He goes, I'm a scratch golfer. I said, oh, nice. Good for you. Now the kid next to me, this young Korean kid who I was friends with, he's like, oh man, he comes to the country club that I go to. Oh my God. I said, well, mother, a closed mouth don't get fed, dude. Ask to be his caddy. He's like, you think so? I said, yeah, do it. So he was down there ordering his sandwich, right? They start moving down the line, and he gets right about here in front of the kid that I was with. And so I'm nudging him, like, ask him. So in the meantime, I'm making the sandwich. He gives it to me, Mike's way. I'm doing it, right? So check it out. So now the guy goes, oh, what club do you caddy at, buddy? Because he asked me, he says, hey, man, I see you come into the country club and I'm a caddy at, can I caddy for you sometime? He goes, absolutely. He goes, what club do you work at? And he tells him the name of the club, which honestly, I don't remember the name of I don't know the club. But he tells him, and the guy goes, it's the NFL football player. The guy goes, huh, you must not be making a lot of money in that club. That's a Jew club. I go, whoop, what the did you just say? Yeah. And I said his first name. What the did you just say, pal? He goes, huh? I go, I'm Jewish. What are you trying to say? Jews are cheap, motherfucker? I said, I'm not cheap. The part of the game is that. I said, you know what? Well, first I said, you should be ashamed of yourself for saying this type of shit. I said, you know what, man? You're a celebrity. You don't know who the is around you right now when you say that type of shit. And he's just like looking at me. And I said, you know what? I should take this sandwich right here, chop it up into 50 pieces, and throw it in your face right now is what I should do. And I swear to my right hand to God, he looked down at the floor, and all he said, he didn't apologize. All he said was, yeah, you probably should. And I gave him a sandwich, and he walked off. And then I turned to my manager, who was like this. and I said, I started, I go, yeah. I took my hat off. I said, yeah, I know I'm fired. He's like, no, man, you're not fired. That was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. You're not fired. I did end up getting fired from that job, but not for that. but anyways, and then I had this whole fantasy that, like, I was going to end up being on. I was like, man, I wish I would have played it differently. I wish I would have beat the out of them.
Yeah.
I imagine this, like,
maybe called Jersey Sammys.
I imagine the segment on Roman's burning. I imagine like oh, Jim Rome being like, oh, in other news, so-and-so a NFL football player got brutally beaten by a convicted ex-felon who's a Jew in a Jersey Mike's in the streets of Woodfield.
Jewish advocate, a Jersey.
Anyways, I say that because that is real. It happens every day, and nobody gives a.
Nobody gives a. But like when you talk about even and then tell the story of the necklace.
All right, so Stateville, 2005, August 14th. I was in B House, which is the high aggression cell house in Stateville. I had just got out of solitary confinement after doing 2 years and 8 months. I was in general population. I had a high necklace, which for those of you that don't know what high is, it's letters of the Jewish alphabet, and it symbolizes life. And it's shaped, it's got a weird shape, and mine was custom made from New York that my mom got me, and it I guess kind of resembled a gun because it was like shaped like looked like it could be a gun. I don't know, maybe. And so we were going to yard, and as I was but I have to digress. I didn't have to handle it like I handled it really. But as I was walking out of the cell house to go to yard, one of the lieutenants was like, yo, where are you going? I go, what? He goes, you can't have that necklace. I go, he's like, you can't have that. I said, why can't I have it? He's like, that's a gun. You can't have it. I said, it's not a gun, dude. I said, I'm Jewish. I showed him my ID. It says Jewish across the back of the ID. I said, I'm Jewish. I got a permit for this. And he's like, all right, go back into your cell, go key into your cell, and you can give the permit to the gallery officer. I says, okay. So I go upstairs. I got the permit right under my mattress, right? I was on the top bunk. And there was a vice lord on the bottom bunk named Toniac Jackson, who was locked up for like 75 years for a murder, and who let me get my brains beat out by these cops. But that's another story. Actually, it's the same story. But in any event, I go back up to the cell. I give the permit to the gallery officer. He come back about 15 minutes later, and he's like, hey, the lieutenant says he still wants your necklace. I said, I ain't giving you motherfucker. I said, take me to SEG. I'm not giving you a motherfucker thing. I got because by the way, I had another necklace, like a Star David necklace, like a couple years earlier that they took from me, and I never got it back. They took another Star David that I had. I had a Star David necklace that was, and they took it from me, and they never gave it back to me. So this time I'm like, I'm not giving you guys shit. So I'm like, we could sort this out, because I'm thinking, worst case scenario, they take me to solitary confinement. I'm there for 3 days under investigation.
They'll figure out you were right.
They'll figure out I was right. They'll let me back out, right? And so they do this. I give him the permit. He come off. He come back up. He comes back up with the permit. He says he still wants the necklace. I said, I'm not giving you the motherfucking necklace. I said, take me to SEG, man. I'm not giving you. So he's like, all right. So he goes back down the cell or whatever, or the stairs, and I start lacing up my shoes. You know, I start putting my shoes on, lacing them up. And my cellie's like, what are you doing? I'm like, you'll see. Like, I ain't going out like that, bro. Like, they're not going to do me like this. So my next door neighbor hits on the wall. He's like, hey, bro. He's like, hey, folks, these motherfuckers are coming up. They're coming up me mugging. These motherfuckers coming up mugging, bro. So I look over the gallery. You can see the stairs. These motherfuckers are coming up with leather gloves on, mugged up, on some bullshit. 2 white shirts, 3 correctional officers coming up the stairs. They come up to the cell, bars, right, in Stateville. They come up to the stairs. They say, Duke says, turn the around and cuff up, right? I'm like, nah, man, I ain't turning around. So now he tells the other CO, bust this mother door down, right? So the CO busted the door down, and dude pushes me real hard up in the, right in front of the cell, in front of the bunk bed. There's a little bit of space in front of the bars. So I'm in that little space, which I used to use to do push-ups. So dude pushes me, bam, up against. I said, turn your out. He calls me out my name. And then I go like this. I says, come on, Lou, I ain't even up. Bam, I cracked his ass. And then they beat the out of me and made a couple comments. They made a couple Jew comments while they were beating the out of me on the ground. And then, took me to SEG. And the only thing that I was supposed to go to TAMS. TAMS was the Supermax prison in Illinois, which has since been shut down. And the only thing that saved me from going to TAMS is when they were, because I went back to the solitary confinement, crying with the mace, mucus coming, mucus was like 6 feet long. I was all burning, threw me in a cell. I started kicking the door. I took the chuckle hostage. That's when, like, the chuckle's open. You put your hand on the chuckle, you take it hostage.
Right, they came close.
They can't do it. Yeah. So these motherfuckers are struggling with me because I'm flipping out now. I'm kicking the door. The CO come back to. He says, "Listen, man, you're leaving here in the morning." He says, "Let me just give you some squares. You can smoke some cigarettes. Be cool. Just don't cause no problems on my shift. You're going to TAMS." So now that was my biggest nightmare, because TAMS, Supermax prison. I knew if I was there, I'd never see the light of day. Just the horror stories I heard about that place, and I knew guys that were in TAMS that ended up in TAMS for gang chiefs, people that kill people in prison that would go there. And I didn't want to go there because I figured if I go there, I'll never end up out of that motherfucker. So as we were leaving in the morning, I start screaming, "Aye, aye, aye!" And Internal Affairs came out of their office as they were walking me out in the morning to transfer. And IA came and they took photos of me. They took photos of my face. It was all f***ed up from them beating me. And TAMS wouldn't accept me.
Wow.
Because in 2004, a Latin king hit an assistant warden over the head at Menard with a weight, right? And they beat the out of him and sent him to TAMS. And then he filed a lawsuit, and the correctional officers at Menard blamed it on the correctional officers at TAMS. So TAMS.
Oh, wow. So they're like, we ain't getting that. Yeah.
So TAMS instituted a policy that they no longer accept any inmates with visible
Injuries.
lacerations.
Wow.
And so I ended up going to Pontiac, which was another solitary confinement joint. But anyways, but that's what happened. It was over my high necklace.
Like, Like I was listening to something where, Kanye's putting that shit out there. He's got more followers than there are Jews in the world. Like that's a heavy
crazy
thing. I just was curious on whether it was that stuff was kind of hitting you the same way as starting.
Yeah, it is, and I also support the people that are speaking out against it that have platforms. There's a woman named Eve Barlow. I don't know if you've ever heard of this woman. She's like a Scottish Jewish chick. She's awesome. You know what I mean? I just see that she calls everybody out on their anti-Semitism. I'm sure she's not perfect, but I see her speaking out on and getting bashed, and I read the comments on the people that comment on her, and you should see the crazy that she's called. Not just about her being a woman or anything, that anti-Jewish that gets spewed at her, hatred, true hatred, but she calls people out on it.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there is so much what do you think?
Because I think propaganda. I think propaganda, man. I think truthfully people have been, I don't know if indoctrinated is the right word, but people have just gotten so comfortable and used to hearing stereotypes and things that they just believe it. That they believe it to be true. You know what I mean? Oh, Jews are oppressive. Jews are controlling this. Jews are really putting in these messages. This is all that has been implanted in people. And now, look, man, you got kids that don't even know what 9/11 was, man.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. So the Holocaust, that's like...
Think about that.
Yeah.
You've got kids that don't know what 9/11 is. So you've got people that genuinely believe, young people, that like the Holocaust, Jews made that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's f***ed up.
Thank you, bro.
Thanks.
I'm gonna record at you.
Thank you, bro. This is awesome.
Thank you, bro. Seriously.